Welcome to the Tales to Inspire podcast. Before we get started on this episode, I would like to invite you to our community so that you can hear more stories to inspire change within your life and positive change within the systems in which we live. All I want you to do is to click on the subscribe button. Your comments mean the world to us with anything that's resonated with you, and I absolutely love your support. I can't wait to go on this journey alongside you. Thank you so much for subscribing. Let's get into today's episode. I often find it fascinating how languages evolve across generations. There are terms we use freely today that simply didn't exist or weren't accepted in decades gone by. And one of those terms is mental health. If you spoke about poor mental health in the 70s, 80s, or even 90s, the responses were often blunt and dismissive. You'd be told to get over it, to work harder, or at the extreme end, people might assume you needed to be placed in a hospital ward or a specialist psychological support unit. There was very little space for nuance, very little room for honesty. The term mental health over the last decade has entered our everyday vocabulary far more openly. And with that has come progress, but also resistance. Some people question whether it's even real. Others believe struggles are exaggerated, that it's an excuse, a way to avoid responsibility or con the system. But the truth is, until you've walked in someone else's shoes, until you've experienced the weight of it yourself, it's impossible to truly understand. So the question isn't whether poor mental health existed in decades gone by. The question is whether those stories were even shared or even heard. Today I'll be reflecting on the lived experience of 3 past Tales to Inspire champions whose stories help us explore mental health with honesty, depth and humanity. Vicki Roberts, Pete Sincock and Pete Barty. Each brings a different perspective, but together their stories remind us that mental health is not a single experience. It's a spectrum. It touches us all. In episode 158, Vicki Roberts speaks about one of the biggest barriers to addressing mental health, stigma. Tell me a little bit more about what mental health means to you.
I think mental health for me is the ongoing growth of my psychological health. I think there's a massive difference between mental illness and mental health is the ongoing upkeep. And I'm so glad that there's now a fantastic space online and in person and these conversations are happening. But yeah, mental health is definitely an ongoing process. And even in your good days, you might experience a couple of mental health problems or some struggles. And then there's always the other extreme of it, which I'm sure we'll get into in a bit.
So then mental health, mental illness, tell me about a little bit how they mean something different to you.
Yeah, I think mental illness is something that I think mental illness is something that is probably going to affect your life in a much more serious way than mental health. Things like psychosis, schizophrenia, anorexia. There's so many different disorders, bipolar, that it requires a diagnosis to be a mental illness. Lots of people suffer with mental health struggles, depression, anxiety, and they can be maintained on a daily basis. But if there's additional support, in my eyes, mental illness is just slightly different from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. So then kind of this new revolution around the mental health space that's happened in the, I guess you call it the well-being space, that's happened in the last 3 years, maybe since COVID?
Yeah,
maybe,
it is definitely.
Maybe since
COVID's made a massive difference.
Have you seen a big difference in the space?
Sure. Oh my God, yeah. When I was growing up, I thought I was such a weirdo. I was like, why do I feel like this? There's no one talking about this. I just thought that there was something wrong with me for so much of my life. And now that everyone talks about it on social media, oh my God, it's fantastic. I know it's not just me anymore. And actually, it's completely normal to struggle with your mental health. It doesn't make you a weirdo or an abnormal. What is that word? Abnormally.
Yeah.
Abnormally?
Anomaly.
Anomaly.
That's the one. I think it's an anomaly.
Doesn't make you an anomaly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think that everyone can talk about this now, and especially if you're trying to help come through your struggles, to be able to talk about it with other people is one of the biggest solutions out there.
Did you feel when you were growing up and going through these things that you did, or did you not do that?
Talk about it? Oh, I didn't talk about it. Really? No way. I think a big thing for me was isolating. And as a result, I didn't talk about it. And I think also I didn't have the vocabulary to be able to talk about it. So I would just hide because I couldn't really say, oh, I'm feeling really anxious today, or what I just had was a panic attack, or I'm really struggling with food right now. Like, none of those words were in my ether, and now I can look online and be like, she says it like that. So yeah, that makes sense. I know how to say it to you. But growing up, there wasn't that. So it's fantastic for the next generation to be able to have words that they can now use to convey their problems, which hopefully means people can get help a lot earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, instead of people slipping through the net and then
for sure
and getting caught through that. So then what can we as a community, we may be doing a lot better.
Yeah.
What can we continue to do or improve as a community to support people within this space?
I think stigmatism is the biggest thing around mental health. And the more you talk about it, the less there is a stigma around it. So talking is the biggest thing, asking people how they are doing, and not just being, how are you doing? I'm fine, thanks. No, actually, how are you? What is actually happening in your life right now? Are you okay? Can I help you in any way? Just bringing up the conversation so that there's less of a taboo around the topic. I'm sure everyone, if they haven't experienced themselves, knows someone that's struggling with their mental health, has struggled with it, or may struggle with it in the future. So it shouldn't be a taboo topic at all. And it frustrates me that it still is in a lot of areas.
So what would you say that one of the main things that you could do for someone, if someone else is struggling and you see some signs, what should you do for that person to support them?
Everyone needs support in different ways. It's not one size fits all. I can't be like, oh, well, I need a cuddle. Yeah. That helps me. You might be like, bugger off, don't want a cuddle at all. And that's actually going to make things worse. So I think you need to have a very honest conversation about how to support someone, give them options, because often when you're in a negative headspace, it's very hard to think of what you need. Yeah. So do you need me to listen? Do you need me to give you advice? Do you need me to pull you out the house when you're really struggling to get out? What can I do to best support you? Give people options.
And I love that.
And then often when people hide away, I have a habit of hiding away. This is tricky advice for me. I need someone to push into my boundary and say, I know you want to be alone, but actually I know what's best for you. Right, luckily, okay. I do have people that do that now and say, get out of bed. Let's do something about this.
I think this is a really great way to say, like, what's a true friend?
Yeah.
And sometimes a true friend is someone who does it's not always being the one who's doing something to be that far away from a boundary. It's someone who pushes you to go to that next step or to push through or to whatever you need in that moment. Yeah. And I think that is probably more of a true friend, that what they're looking at, as opposed to, like you said, these are the 3 things that you have to do for mental health to get to where you need to.
Everyone's individual. You can't just say, oh, this will fix you, because it doesn't. Even with medication, each medication targets people differently. I think what makes a great friend when you're struggling with mental health is someone that might not necessarily understand but tries their best. I've had friends that I tend to vanish. I don't reply to text messages. I'm a bloody nightmare. I'm fully aware of that. But the friends that have said, oh my God, it's totally fine. I understand that you needed that space and it hasn't affected our friendship. That's what makes it a true friendship, rather than someone that gets very frustrated by that space, which I also understand. But mental health, it's very hard to
I struggle with those type of friendships, those people who always need to be messaging.
Oh, I can't do that.
Those ones who, can we do something this week? I'm sorry, but I just don't have that space.
And it's not about you. Yeah. I just don't have the energy and I don't have the space at the moment. And it's not you. You're amazing. But I can't right now. I'm so sorry.
I use those lines all the way through my university.
Oh, did you?
It's not about you.
I promise it's not you, it's me.
It's absolutely me.
Yeah.
You stole them.
No, it's in every film ever.
Vicky draws an important distinction between mental health and mental illness. Mental health, she explains, is the ongoing upkeep of our inner world. Just like physical health, it's not something we either have or don't have. It's something we maintain, we neglect, and we nurture and repair over time. The fact that these conversations are happening more openly is something to celebrate. But as Vicky reminds us, this is a journey and not a destination. The scale of mental health challenges in the UK is significant. 1 in 4 people experience a mental health problem each year, according to Mind UK. 1 in 6 adults report experiences of anxiety or depression in any given week. And mental health conditions account for over 50% of all sickness absence in the UK workforce, according to NHS England. Suicide remains the leading cause of death for men under the age of 50 in the UK. These numbers don't represent weakness. They represent human beings living under pressure. In episode 156, Pete Sincock shares his experience of navigating mental health and the importance of support systems. So Pete, can you tell me about what good mental health is and bad mental health is to you?
All right, so first of all, I'm going to address the concept of mental health itself. So mental health to me is just a well-being of how your mind is. So that on a sliding scale is quite large. So to say good mental health could for some people be that moment of euphoria when they've won a race or their football team has won a game, that moment of elation. For some people, it's getting through to the end of the day and realising that they've achieved everything that they wanted to achieve. And then bad mental health can range from had a bit of a bad day and everything sucks a little bit to the moment of despair, which for some people can ultimately be like suicidal thoughts, which isn't great. Obviously, that's unfortunately one of the big things for men in my age group at the moment.
So then, Pete, on that side of things, what can we do to support better mental health in our communities and society that we live?
One of the big things I'd say is it's really, really important that there's a open window in dialogue that's not just kind of for women, because it's been very much pressed that women have that support system and that it's easier for them to talk. Men have to realise that it's just as important that we talk and that we have that friendships and that growth within each other, because without that support, it leaves one person in isolation, which means you're quite vulnerable. And if you're not able to talk to people, then it can make things a lot more difficult in order to get through. And sometimes it can be a 5-minute friendly conversation with somebody when you've just bought a coffee in a coffee shop. They can change your day from, oh my God, everything's going wrong, to, oh, that was really nice. That's put a little smile on my face. And those little bits throughout a day can really make a difference.
But where does the responsibility lie? Is it with the government systems? Is it with families? Is it with individuals? Where does that responsibility lie?
So the ultimate responsibility has got to be with the government. There's got to be better funding into mental health, better research into it, not just within kind of, I feel sad, I feel good, but things like ADHD, autism, anything fibromyalgia, which my mum's got, which can massively affect her day from one day to the next. So just general that support system, but also it's got to be from within yourself. Kindness is huge. Be nice to people. If for every person that you're nice to, you'll put a smile on their face, and if you can put a smile on their face, you can almost guarantee they'll put a smile on somebody else's. So you should spread that warmth and that happiness in that moment, rather than kind of, I don't know, you go to cross a road and a car's going a bit too fast. Yeah, right, you jump and you're like, oh, that's not good, and you might swear a little bit. Move on, drop it. Don't pass that anger onwards. Internalise it, let it go. But that happiness needs to be shared, because through that kindness and that warmth, you're able to actually improve other people's lives.
That's so important as well. Do you have any support systems that you put in place for yourself?
So it's taken me a while to kind of realise this, but I'm really, really lucky in the situation I'm in at the moment. Now, I went through a really kind of messed up childhood, a bit of kind of difficulty through my 20s, beginning of my early 30s, and I've become a member of something called the Yes Tribe, which I think you're aware of.
And we'll go into.
Yeah. And I went to Yesville last year, and no word of a lie, that saved my life. A couple of days beforehand, I'd tried to commit suicide, and one of the members of the Yes Tribe essentially had already arranged for me to be able to go. I went with them, really anxious, really scared, genuinely in an absolute mess. And I came away with the one realisation, which was that there is more to life than what I'm currently doing. And I then made a big change. It just so happens that the same person that took me, I now live with. I accidentally moved into his house 6 months ago. Essentially, I asked him if I could stay in his back garden to allow me to do a journey, which I'm sure we'll cover in a bit. And then I've ended up not leaving. And he's now become one of my closest friends. He's my confidant, speak to him about everything. And I don't think this person realises quite how much they actually mean to me and how much difference they've made.
Pete speaks openly about mental health as a spectrum, something that fluctuates rather than one that stays fixed. What really stands out is his emphasis on one person. One person who listens. One person who notices. One person who stays. Sometimes that single connection can be the difference between someone continuing to struggle alone or beginning to find their way back. In episode 160, Pete Barty explores another difficult truth: how often we feel unable to share our darkest thoughts, even with those closest to us. Pete, mental health. Can you tell me a little bit more about what good mental health and bad mental health is?
Yeah, from my perspective, good mental health for me is when you're functioning and maintaining your life balance. So things are going along well, in the same way that you might look at physical health and you're feeling fit and healthy. I think there's a parallel with mental health as well. So you can deal with the ups and downs that life throws at you. You've got an element of resilience. You recognize the fact that at times things will be tough, things will get thrown at you that you think, oh, that's a curveball, I wasn't expecting that. But you've got the capacity, you've got the tools to deal with that and kind of just carry on with life. The flip side to that is when that becomes too much, when life's normal roller coaster, if you like, throws something at you and you're unable to cope with it, that you've not maintained your resilience, your well-being to a point where you can cope with that. And if things start impacting on your daily life, that's when I think your mental health suffers and your mental health takes a dip, and you need to try and recognize that, which isn't always easy because it's very difficult to sometimes take a look at ourselves and go, actually, I'm finding this really difficult. But it's to recognize that and then take some intervention. And that can take a vast array of forms, from going to see your GP to going to seek help with a therapist, to looking at your own support network, or doing anything that works for you, like exercise or mindfulness or any of those things that might work for you, but it's stepping in and taking those steps to help boost ourselves out of that time and that period where things are impacting our daily life.
So as a community/society, what can we do to support people struggling with their mental health / promote good mental health?
I think we're on the right track. I think we are making mental health part of the discussion. It's very rare you can read something without the words mental health coming up. So it is becoming part of our language. I think we are giving people permission to have that conversation. I think from my own experience, workplaces are becoming more accepting that it is part of life to have times when we're struggling, to face challenges. So I think we're on the right path. There just needs to perhaps be a little bit more of it. The NHS are overwhelmed with requests for every part of their service. So whether society, whether government, whoever that may be, whatever colour that could be, comes in and provides more funding for that, to provide more state-funded therapists, state-funded interventions, interventions in society, in the community. Maybe that's where we need to go. Because I think from recognizing where I'm coming from my own background, I think we're getting to a place where we can have conversations between each other. But we're not all qualified to know what to do next.
Well, with your qualified background as a therapist, then how does it look where does the responsibility lie? Is it with the government, the systems? Is it with the families? Is it with the individuals? Like, where does that responsibility lie with mental health?
I don't think there's one place where it sits. I think it's a combination of all of those. I think community has to take a role, and I think that there is a slight diminishment of the role of community in some parts of society, whereas in generations before, community would step in and help with that. So I think there's a role of community to do that. There is a role in the government to perhaps provide funding and provide infrastructure to assist with that, which is a big question. What that actually looks like, I don't know, but I think there is a role for more support in society. There's also an element of everybody has to look out for each other. So this is society in a slightly different context where we can look out for the people around us, our friends and loved ones, our families, and actually have a conversation with them and provide support from experience of people that come and talk to me. When you say, what is your support network, and inquire what that support network is for them, they will reel off a whole list of friends. And I said, well, what form does that look like, and what support do you get from them? More often than not, they find it really hard to talk to their support network about the trouble they're having, about the difficulties they're facing and the challenges they're trying to overcome, because they might not want to burden them, or they're too embarrassed. So there's still that stigma. The access to a therapist is, I think, less stigma-filled than it ever was. I think there is still some stigma within friendship groups. I can talk from a male perspective, and I think that is still very prevalent. I can't talk from a female perspective because I'm not in those circles, but I would imagine that it's more prevalent among males. And we know that the data and the statistics about suicide in males, so that suggests to me that it's harder for males to speak up in their peer groups.
Which once again brings it to a really important part to play, where having a neutral person, and I know from my perspective, having a therapist for over 2.5 years, was the one thing that I really loved about that, was I had a neutral person that I could go to, and that was it. I could share that space, and it was my space. It wasn't anyone else's. And then I could still speak to my friends about whatever I needed, but at least I'd process that with a neutral party, which I think for males, maybe not for females, but definitely for males from my perspective, is a really beautiful thing to have, that neutral person to go to.
Absolutely. There's no judgment. There's no preconceived ideas about what you should and shouldn't be other than your own. If you go with a load of stuff you want to talk about, the only judgment is usually your own, and the how harsh you're being on yourself about what you're going through. Because a therapist should come with no judgment and be empathetic to everything that you're coming out with. So I totally agree with you. I mean, even as a therapist, I've had lots of therapy, and that was one of the best things when I first encountered therapy, was entering that room with a complete stranger. And once you got through that awkwardness, that difficulty, and I don't know you, trying to form a relationship, it was just, you used the word beautiful. I think it is beautiful. I think it's really sacred, that relationship you can have with a therapist, that really you can say anything and there won't be any judgment, and they will actually help you to find insight into some of that stuff you've been maybe habitually doing and not really had any insight over. Because we keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it's these behaviours that a lot of the time, and these thoughts that we need to break to improve our mental health. We keep going with this stuff. The perseverance without insight kind of leads to the same outcome all the time.
Pete reminds us that while dialogue is essential, not all of us are qualified to tell someone what to do next. And that's okay. Responsibility doesn't sit with one group alone. It belongs to everyone. Individuals, communities, support networks, systems, and the government. Pete also reflects on how the role of community has diminished in recent times. And with that loss, many people have been left carrying their struggles in isolation. There are many lessons within this episode, but one stands out for me above all else. Good mental health is not something we achieve once and then forget about. It's a daily practice, moment to moment, choice by choice. It's like polishing a mirror. If you want that mirror to continue to shine, to reflect your best self, it needs continual care. Without it, dust gathers, and even the strongest mirror can lose its clarity. There are 3 key takeaways for me. 1, that mental health is maintenance, not crisis response. Don't wait until things get overwhelming. Build small, consistent habits that support your well-being. Number 2, be the one, but know your limits. You don't need to fix someone. Listening, noticing, and signposting can be life-changing. And number 3, rebuild community, one connection at a time. Isolation feeds poor mental health. Connection, even imperfect, helps heal it. Mental health isn't about being strong all the time. It's about being human and knowing you don't have to carry everything alone. And that's exactly why these stories matter. And your stories matter too. Thank you for watching today's episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please leave a comment in the comment section below, and we cannot wait to see you for our next episode.